All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're about to get started. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. Great. Well, welcome. We're excited to be with you today. This is Amy Poirier filling in for Amanda this afternoon. So welcome and glad you could join us. We're going to start off today with a real quick announcement about next week's weekly webinar from Meredith, and then we're going to move into our presentation from Tulane Mental Health that we have been talking about for the last several weeks, and they're going to be presenting for the majority of the hour today. So real quick, before we start that, I'm going to turn it over to Meredith for an announcement for next week.
Thanks, Amy. Next week's weekly webinar, we are going to focus on a discussion around the current assessment structure, as you know, which is focused on teaching strategies gold. And we're going to kind of delve into some options and shifts for the 2021-2022 school year. So we want to go ahead and just give you the heads up to invite your OSEP administrator to the call next week, or any other staff who has a strong touch point with teaching strategies, who may be able to add to the conversation. And after the main group discussion, we're going to hang on the line for the second half of the hour and discuss in small groups and problem solve anything that comes up during the call for all of those who are able to stay for the hour. If you have any questions in the coming week or have something hot on your mind about gold, please feel free to email me. My email's on the screen, or Brene Brown. And again, please invite anyone with a gold touch point for next week's weekly webinar. Thanks, Amy.
Great. Thanks, Meredith. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to now turn it over, and we're going to take a minute to switch screens. And I'm going to turn it over to our Tulane mental health consultants, and Dr. Angela Keys and Dr. Allison Trigg, and they're going to share information for you today about their Tulane mental health consultation services, in addition to talking with you all about ways to support your own mental health during this time. So we're very excited to have them with us today and want to extend a warm welcome and hope you enjoy their session.
Thank you so much. This is Allison Trigg, and Angela Keys will be joining in a little bit. Right now, she'll be manning the slides. So we are going to talk to you today about Tulane Mental Health Consultation Services. And like Amy said, we're going to tell you some about what we do and how we do it. And then we're going to turn to how you can focus on yourself and a little, hopefully something that will be a bit uplifting to end this with. So we'll start with just a little overview of Tulane Mental Health Consultation Services. Some of this is similar to what Dr. Keys let you know about last month. But just so we're on the same page, we have a few different programs where we provide mental health consultation services. TICS is our statewide program, and it's our biggest program where we provide consultation services to Type 3 centers and FCC providers, primarily those who are participating in the pilots, and that is funded through LDOE. We also have some smaller programs. We provide consultation services to the City Seats programs and in Orleans Parish. We have mental health consultation services contracts with various Head Start and Early Head Start grantees around Louisiana. And we're also an approved LDO vendor for mental health consultation services for infants through 6th grade. In the past, we've worked with Orleans Parish Charter Schools providing MHC through 2nd grade. And we also worked for several years with the Launch Partnership in the Acadiana region, where we supported consultation services not only to early education, but also to physicians' offices and early steps. So we've had a wide reach around the state and a lot of experience with consultation services to early childhood and elementary school. And we've been in the business of consultations since 2006. We've been really fortunate to get a lot of national recognition for our program, and we've helped design and redesign several states and municipalities consultation programs around the country. All right, so we'll move on to what is early childhood mental health consultation. And it's a method of supporting healthy development of young children. And depending on the setting, it can be, like I mentioned earlier, in many different places, really anywhere where young children are, it can be. But we're mainly going to focus on early care and education today. And so when we look at early childhood mental health consultation, it's designed to support all children that are involved in an early education setting, all of their caregivers, their teachers, the families, the administration. So it's really trying to make that experience of being in that education each day the best it can be for everyone involved. And the services that we provide are a combination of child-centered services as well as program-focused aspects. So we combine child-centered concerns with program-focused aspects of consultation. We don't do either one individually, we do them together. Right, next. This is just in here for you to look at later. You're going to be receiving a copy of these, but this is a flyer that just goes over all of our services offered, and we just wanted to make sure you could have hands-on for this. So we can move on to the next. So why mental health consultation? There are different ways of supporting children and families. So what is it about mental health consultation? Well, before we get into some research about mental health consultation, we start with the underlying truth that providing quality care and education for young children is really hard work. And that hard work is there even in the very best of times. But when there are things like a global health crisis that we're going through right now, or when we have multiple hurricanes hit Louisiana, or when we have traumas, family traumas, community violence, etc., this makes that experience of providing quality care and education for young children even harder. And mental health consultants are all licensed or working towards their mental health license professionals that have an understanding of not only the mental health of young children and their caregivers, but also understand the child care and early childhood education experience as well. So they really have, they're really uniquely equipped to support families, children, and educators through difficult times. Next slide, there we go. So what does mental health consultation do? Well, this is just a quick slide. I could go into a lot of detail on all of these, but a quick slide on some of the research findings around mental health consultation in general. So we know that mental health consultation improves things that we want to be improved. So things like overall classroom climates and increasing positive teacher-child interactions. Those are things that we hope to see after consultation. And we also have research showing us that mental health consultation decreases some things that we hope not to see. So things like teacher stress and burnout decrease after mental health consultation, which in turn, not surprisingly, decreases teacher rate of turnover. The way to continue supporting children is to have those consistent relationships. A really key piece that mental health consultation can support is reducing rates of expulsion. We know that preschool and pre-K expulsion is about 3.5 times higher than K through 12 expulsion rates. And we also know that boys and children of color are disproportionately impacted by expulsion. Having access to a mental health consultant is the only thing so far that's been found to reduce that expulsion rate for preschool children. And this reduction is true for all children, including boys and including children of color. So that's an important piece there. And then, not surprisingly, parents miss less work due to lack of childcare after mental health consultation, because those children are more likely to stay in their childcare setting. So we have some different findings from all over, and I will talk in a minute more specifically about findings for TICs. Next slide. So when we think about TICs, we want to make sure you guys know where we're coming from. And we have 3 primary goals. The first one is to promote healthy social emotional development of young children. The second one is to support caregivers and teachers and families' ability to promote social emotional development of young children. And then to refer for treatment or design interventions for children who have difficult behaviors in the classroom or who have developmental concerns or other mental health concerns. So mental health consultation does not typically provide direct mental health consultation services, but we provide supports to bolster the care and education that children are receiving in their childcare settings, and then help think about where in the community they can be referred if they need more individualized treatments. Next slide. So when we're talking about social emotional skills, what we're talking about are executive function skills, which we really see as the primary foundation for school readiness. So when we think about what children need when they go to school, we know they need to have self-confidence, to be able to develop relationships with peers and teachers, that they need to be able to concentrate and feel that they can persist and work through a challenging task. We know that they should be able to communicate their needs adequately to peers and teachers, pay attention, listen to instructions, solve problems. All of these executive functions, self-regulation skills are really cornerstone pieces of what children need when they get to school. And next slide, Angela. And this slide, isn't going to be anything that's surprising. You guys know this. Okay, yes, executive function skills primarily build in those first 0 to 5 years. But we always want to bring people back to this, because while they are building in those first 5 years, we know that children may be behind and have deficits on this growth that's happening. And this can particularly happen for children who've had traumatic experiences, maybe children from lower socioeconomic status homes that don't have as many opportunities. And so it's during these years that we really want to support teachers and how to support these executive function skills so that children then can be ready when they enter that kindergarten year at age 5. Next slide. And kindergarten teachers echo this. So in one study in 2008, kindergarten teachers said, we want kids who are motivated and have social emotional skills when they come into our classrooms. And so we often put this in our trainings, this finding in our trainings, because we definitely know that pre-literacy and pre-numeracy skills are so important. Angela and I both have several graduate degrees and are really love education, but we don't ever want to put the buggy before the horse. We want to make sure that we have kids supported in learning those foundational social emotional skills so that when they get to that place that they're ready to learn how to read, that they will be able to with that foundation of social emotional knowledge. Next slide. So how do these skills develop? They develop in the context of caregiving relationships. That is how social emotional skills develop. And so yes, this is parents, this is grandparents, aunts and uncles, all of those relationships that kids have at home, but it's also very much those early childhood teachers that are in contact and caring for children every day. And we know that children need adult relationships that are consistent and sensitive and responsive to those social emotional needs that children have. And we also know how difficult this is right now during COVID-19, when several early childhood programs are sometimes having virtual components to them, when parents may be afraid to send children in. We have to think about how to maintain these consistent, sensitive, and responsive relationships for young children to develop these social emotional skills. Next slide. So similarly, when we're thinking about how young children develop their social emotional skills, being through relationships, we also know that mental health consultation works through relationships. So there's a real parallel process in how consultation does its work. It's all about relationships. And studies are suggesting that it might be the quality of the mental health consultant-teacher relationship that's the real primary vehicle for how change takes place. And in fact, this is something that we're going to be concentrating on in some of our upcoming program evaluations. What is it about this relationship that helps make those changes happen? And one of the things that our consultants do when they're working with teachers and directors and families is they don't come in as, hey, I'm the expert, I'm going to tell you what to do. But instead, they really want to come in and say, all right, let me share my knowledge with you, and I want to hear about your knowledge about the classroom, about this child, about what you know that's going on. And then together, as a team, we can figure out the best way to proceed. Very much about partnership. Next slide. And we often hear about children who are resilient, or adults who think back about how they were resilient to overcome difficult traumas or a difficult background. And the thing that we always want to point out when we're thinking about resilience is that children don't become resilient alone. They become resilient because they had at least one, hopefully more than one, supportive relationship in their life. And oftentimes we will hear people talk about that supportive relationship being a teacher. And so this is as true for a first or second grade teacher as it might be for a toddler teacher in an early education center. Secure relationships are key for what we're doing. Next slide. So how do we do this? How do we support these social emotional skills? All right, we're saying it's through relationships, but what are the nuts and bolts of that? Well, we follow what the Center for the Developing Child has put out from Harvard University. And they say there are three primary ways that you want to look at supporting social emotional development. The first is through putting together programs that train teachers and support them and how to manage their classrooms effectively, either through or along with mental health consultation. They also say implementing programs that train teachers to directly model and directly teach social emotional skills are very important. So, and number two, I really want to draw attention to, because this is saying we're not just expecting children are going to pick up on these social emotional skills, these executive function tasks, but that we're going to actively teach these friendship skills. We're going to actively teach how to do these social emotional skills. And then three, implementing curriculum that teach social emotional skills. And then at Tykes, we try to encompass these across our programs, really Tykes and TMIX. So we train and support teachers in classroom management skills throughout Tykes, through really all of our mental health consultation programs. It's a key component of what we do. We also use a lot of material from CEFL, the Center for the Social Emotional Foundation for Early Learning. And we use the social emotional teaching strategies as part of our training and part of our modeling to help teachers really think about actively teaching social emotional skills. So this is thinking about using those social emotional teaching strategies, whether or not you have a social emotional curriculum. The third is supporting programs that do have a social emotional curriculum. And some of our programs, we've been able to get funding outside of Tykes to implement something like PATHs. And then number four, and this is something that we've recently been able to do in Tykes, is now we are able to provide direct social skills instruction to 3- and 4-year-olds who may have specific needs. So this is an enhanced part of Tykes that we're happy to start doing. It's a little hard with virtual, can't really do this virtually, but in those times we can be in centers, we've been able to start doing direct social skills instruction with small groups. And we definitely see that there might be more in need for this as more children have lost time when they would be able to practice these social emotional skills due to the pandemic. Next slide. So to just think generally about our approach, relationships, key component of everything that we do. We have interactive trainings, and all of our consultants are pathways approved. So teachers who are looking for clock hours are able to get that. When we are not virtual, our consultants spend a lot of time observing and modeling in classrooms. Being virtual changes that a little bit, but we consistently, even via virtual means, meet with directors and staff and parents. And then we have child-centered consultations that we can do for children who need individualized supports or who need community referrals. And one thing I don't have in here that I will say is we also have a tele-MHC platform available. So any caregiver, they do not have to be related to a child care center, who's caring for a child 5 or under, can go to our website and request a remote mental health consultation contact. And that's been something that we've been seeing an uptick in over the last few weeks of caregivers, both in childcare centers and parents looking for extra supports based on what's happening in our world right now. Next slide. So, all right, does this work? So you told me a lot of stuff about TIKES and what you want to do, but tell me if this works. And so as I go into our evaluation, I do want to say that I'm going to talk about different ways that we've evaluated our model briefly. I'm not going to go into a lot of details. And these are different measures that we've chosen over the years. They're not necessarily measures that are being used by the department or anybody else. It's interesting to note that we used class to measure our impact on classrooms through mental health consultation about 3 years before the Department of Education decided to start using it for their measure of quality. So these are things that we've selected. I just want to make that clear. All right, so Angela, will you advance so they can both the rectangles will be up there? Thank you. So we did look at class pre-K, pre and post mental health consultation, and these were the areas we looked at. So we did not look at the entirety of the class measure because we thought that these would be the ones that mental health consultation would make the most impact in. And we found significant improvements in all of these areas in the expected directions, with just a decrease in negative climate, but increases in all of the others. We also examined any impact on the environment rating scales. And we found similarly, Angela, will you advance? We found improvements on the overall scale of the environment rating scales, which we actually were a little surprised about because there's so much on that scale that is not relationship based. And we found greater improvements on that social emotional aspects of the environment rating scale. And then we also asked teachers to tell us about their experiences before and after participating in mental health consultation. And teachers reported that their own personal teaching self-efficacy or their ability to make a difference in children's lives increased after 6 months of consultation. And similarly, their ability to influence children's development as opposed to other adults in a child's life, their sense of influence over children they worked with also significantly increased after 6 months of consultation. And teachers reported that they felt more competent in supporting social emotional development of children after working with a consultant for 6 months. So in different areas, when teachers thought about themselves, their own self-report after working with a consultant, we saw positive shifts in all of these. And important to say about the class, the ERS, and the teacher self-reports, all of these measures increased after 6 months and then remained increased 6 months later, so 1 year after starting with consultation. So we know that the differences that we're seeing continue on past the end of that consultation. I didn't mention earlier on, which would make sense now, that we work with centers for 6 months and then we leave, where centers are allowed follow-up visits and they're allowed to have consultation again 1 year after they've completed, but we don't work nonstop with centers going in consistently. All right, Angela, next slide. This is just a quick, you can look at this later. These are the published research articles about our evaluations. And then these are 2 other articles, one which was just published last month, which talks about how we've moved our program virtual as needed and the challenges and barriers and advantages that has brought up for us. So you will have this shared with you in case you're interested in reading some journal articles. All right, so I'm just gonna cover a little bit more about evaluation and then I'm gonna turn it over to Angela to talk about some more fun stuff. So the current evaluation, or the evaluation that we've just wrapped up collecting data and we're in the process of analyzing the data, we decided to look at child outcomes. So we looked at teachers' reports, we looked at overall classroom, and we wanted to see, are we making differences in the lives of children? So we specifically were looking at behavioral difficulties, resiliency, and expulsion risk. And our preliminary findings tell us that after 6 months of consultation, teachers rate children who they had rated as the most difficult in the class as being less difficult. Teachers rated their overall classroom as less difficult after working with a consultant for 6 months. And teachers rated difficult children lower on behavioral concerns and higher on protective factors after 6 months. And one of the key things about these findings, Angela, will you just, yep, thank you. One of the key things about these findings is that the classrooms were randomly selected to participate in the evaluation. So we just didn't have the manpower to collect the data from every single teacher. So some of the teachers that we collected data from didn't spend a lot of time with their consultants. They may not have been the classroom that the director thought needed the most work. So even with that caveat, we still found significant changes in classrooms where maybe the consultant didn't spend the most of their time. And we think this really strengthens the base of our programmatic model, because our focus is working overall with an overall center. We started off saying mental health consultation aims to make the overall experience of being in that childcare education environment the best it can be for everyone. And so we feel like these findings are helping us show that that's what we're doing. And so I'm going to end with thinking about, and Angela, you can switch slides now, thank you. Why might these various changes happen? So we're seeing changes in child behavior, we're seeing overall classroom changes, we're seeing teachers report changes in themselves. Why might this happen? And we have a lot of working theories on why this might be happening, and I imagine it's some combination of all of these. But some of the things we do in consultation is we really work with all of the adults to notice and understand different people's perspectives, to sort of put on someone else's shoes. We also work to support teachers and everyone in that center in understanding that when a child has challenging behaviors or behavior they would rather not see, that we have to really first try to figure out what is the meaning of that behavior, that all behavior has meaning, whether it's seen as good or quote bad, that there's something the child is trying to communicate to us through that. And we have to figure out what that is in order to answer it. We also work directly to design behavior intervention plans and make referrals for children and support families in following through with those referrals. We also just give teachers and directors time for them to discuss what's happening in their classroom and in their lives. And we've definitely found this has been something that's been important, I think, throughout our tenure in providing consultation, but it's something that we think is a little more important recently in the COVID-19 pandemic. We also can make referrals for teachers if they need it. So we don't just make child referrals, we make adult referrals. And we work with directors to help them understand and respond to the needs of everyone that they're working with. We know directors have so much on their plates and on their shoulders. And so we support them in thinking about how to respond to those needs. And then we provide information and referrals to families, which we hope will complement anything that we're working to support in the classroom. And when I think about all of these different possible theories or things that a consultant might do to support a teacher, a family, a director, the overall center, across most of them is the process of reflection, of spending some time reflecting on one person's role, a family's role, a teacher's role, a director's role in the life of a child, how that classroom is operating, etc. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Keys now to think some more about reflection and the role of reflective practice in consultation, and also the role that reflective practice can have in each of our lives to make it a little bit better. So I'll turn it over to you, Angela.
Alrighty, thank you. So as Allison just mentioned, reflection and engaging in reflective practice is a really critical aspect of the work that we all do as consultants, and that we would encourage teachers, directors to also do. So just to kind of give a definition of reflective practice, I have it here, it's habitual and judicious use of communication, knowledge, technical skills. But what we're really talking about is thinking about moment by moment, what's happening, what did you do, what might the other person have done or thought, what you might be able to do differently next time, what are the contributing factors, how was I feeling in that moment? How was the other person feeling in that moment? Why did that affect me in the way that it did? So really think about what's happening in the classroom, in the center, with a child or a family that you're interacting with, or a co-teacher, to really think about how those things are unfolding and how you might do things differently. Or what you may have done really well. And reflection actually helps us to understand ourselves. So thinking about, what caught my attention when that child engaged with the other child in that way, or was exploring the classroom, or interacting with the peer. What grabbed my attention there? What delighted me as I watched that interaction? So to really kind of think about what observing that interaction means to you, to understand the child's point of view. What is it like to be a child in that teacher's classroom? What is it like for, what do I have that I'm excited about? What do I have that I like to do, or who I like to play with, who my friends are? And really can help you to understand why the child may be interacting in certain ways or engaging in certain ways, to really kind of put yourself in that child's shoes and think about what it's like from the child's perspective to be in that classroom. This is a fun and interesting place to be. Is my teacher nice to me? Do I have friends there? Am I excited about coming to school every day? And then to really use reflection to think about other person's perspectives. What else might be contributing to what's happening? Is it a difference in a family culture? Different beliefs about responsibilities or child development? So thinking about what other things might be influencing. Sometimes it's just it's a family. This is how we do things, and it conflicts. It may conflict with how things are happening in the center. I know we often hear as mental health consultants, and I'm sure your teachers hear the parents say, "Oh, they don't never do that at home. They don't listen. They don't follow directions so well at home like they do here," or "I've never seen that behavior at home that you may be sharing about, what's happening in the classroom." To really think about those multiple perspectives and what might be happening and contributing to that child's behavior. So as a consultation team, we really like to practice what we preach. And so we engage in a lot of reflection on our team, in our trainings, in our work with teachers. And we also set aside time several times a month to engage in that reflective practice ourselves. And so each of our consultants has an individual reflective supervisor who they meet with twice a month, to think about not only what's happened in the classroom, but how they feel, how they experience what's happening in centers that they're working with. And these supervision pairings are long-term. One of the consultants that I supervise is someone we hired in 2007, and I've been her reflective supervisor for the past 13 years. So we have a history, and we have a relationship. There's that word again. We have an understanding about who the other person is, and it really does help as we talk twice a month for an hour, twice a month, to really think about who she is, and what she brings into centers affects her interactions with centers and her work with centers. In addition to the twice a month individual, consultants also have once monthly group reflective calls with 4 or 5 other members of the team, with usually a different supervisor who does that. And they're able to kind of talk and share ideas and information about, what they might be feeling, or I tried this in a center and it really worked well, or I went to this great training, or I'm stuck on something, and to really get some feedback and input and team building and relationship building across region and across members. And then they have once a month FAN technique group call. And FAN is facilitating attuned interactions. It's through the Fussy Baby Network at Erickson Institute. And they really think about kind of walking walking folks through and thinking through using this FAN technique where folks are and how to basically respond based on where a person is and not just based on your own agenda or what you kind of want to do. And it kind of helps to slow down and reflect on what's happening in the moment and responding after reflection. So the benefit of doing all of this slowing down and thinking is really it increases your ability to respond when times are tough. And it helps to kind of take that pause, that beat before we respond. And so to have a more appropriate response. It helps to advance professional judgment, can work well with individual clients. For consultants, it increases kind of the clinical judgment and wisdom and decreases professional burnout. And I think one of the things that we, when we're stressed, we think it's too hard to stop and think. I don't want to think about it. I want to just act. I want to do. I want to move. And so it's easy to stop being reflective or to be less reflective when you're stressed. But that's really when you need it the most. It's when you really do need to slow down and think before you act and take that moment. And it may just be a moment to breathe before you do something. So it's when you kind of least want to do it that you most need to do it. So TICE consultants, because they get all of this from their supervisors, we really want to engage in that parallel process and provide reflective support to the teachers, the directors that we work with, and really support the early childhood workforce in kind of being reflective, decreasing their stress, and trying to kind of take that pause. So we're going to do a quick reflective activity, and we want to thank 3 of our mental health consultants who have kind of helped us in putting these slides together, and to really think about stress and how it can actually, be more beneficial than we think, believe it or not. And hopefully hearing this information will kind of challenge your perceptions of stress and offer new ideas about how to handle it when it arises. So let's think about stress. These are just like a few of the many things people can stress over, right? There's so much going on in the world right now. There's so many things to stress about in our personal lives, in the world, in our jobs. I don't know how many people, if you want to raise your hand, how many people think they could get bingo on here, right? You get your free space in the middle. But there are lots of things that we can kind of tag if we're playing this game of bingo that that we can say, yep, that one and that one and that one, and yep, bingo, I got it. Some people have even in these trainings say, oh, I could black this out. I got a blackout bingo on this one. But that is what happens when we have stress, right? We are irritable. We may have stomach pains. We may not feel well. We may not be able to eat very well. We may have a headache. We're worried. We can't remember the things that I was supposed to do that. I forgot. I'm just so overwhelmed by what's going on. You may be tight in your muscles. So lots of different things, can result from the stress that we're having. It manifests itself physically in our bodies. And so that's all the more reason why it's important to think about how to reduce and ease our stress. And so most of the material that we're going to present in this training comes from this great book that Allison found and presented to us called The Upside of Stress. And actually, if you look at the subtitle, it says, Why Stress is Good for You and How to Get Good at It, which is just such a foreign concept, but hopefully it'll make more sense once we are at the end of the hour. So there's a study done, 30,000 adults were surveyed, and they asked, how much have you experienced in the past year? How much stress? And then, do you believe that stress is harmful to your health? So of course, people are going to say, yes, they have experienced stress, and yes, stress is harmful. And so 8 years later, they followed these 30,000 adults, and they looked at the public records of those folks and found that high levels of stress increased the risk of dying by 43%, but only if the adults believed that the stress was harming their health. So I'm going to say that again. Stress increased the risk of dying by 43%, but only for those who believed that it was detrimental to their health. So people with high levels of stress who didn't think that stress was harmful had the lowest risk of death. So believing stress is bad for you combined with actual stress is what's harmful. So I'm hoping that's making sense. It's really hard not to seem like if I have nodding heads, but believing stress is bad for you. Oh my goodness, I'm stressing out. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna have a heart attack. Those things, believing stress is bad for you combined with the stress is what's actually doing the harm. So when you have a harmful mindset, because you can look at it two ways, right? Stress is harmful. If you think stress is harmful, it depletes my health and my vitality. It debilitates my performance and productivity. I can't do anything. I don't feel well. I can't do anything. It inhibits my learning and growth. I can't concentrate. And the effects of stress are negative and should be avoided at all costs. So that's the harmful stress mindset. I'm so sorry for the ringing phone in the background. But if you have a mindset where stress is enhancing, then you can think things like, stress is kind of enhancing my performance and productivity. It makes me more aware of what's going on. It makes me kind of motivated to do something. It improves my health and vitality. It facilitates my learning growth. I'm learning something from the stress that's happening to me. There are lessons to be learned here, and I've been able to find a silver lining to it. And the effects of stress are positive and should be utilized. So if you think about things that stress us out that are good for our health. I don't know if can anybody think of anything you might want to put in the chat? That what's stressful, but it's also good for us. Maybe things like exercise is good for us. Eating healthy, making a healthy choice when we'd rather have a cookie can be stressful.
Tara said change.
Change, yes. Change is difficult.
Taking care of elderly parents.
Mm-hmm.
Problem solving at work, Lee said.
Yes.
Learning new skills, Beth shared.
Absolutely. Learning a new job is stressful, but it can be really positive. Even things like the holidays, planning for the holidays, welcoming a new member of the family, planning a wedding, those sorts of things are stressful, but they can also be things that lead to more happiness in life. I love doing puzzles, but sometimes I'm like, okay, if I don't find this one piece of the puzzle, I'm just gonna be really upset. So just little things can be really stressful, but can also can be enhancing. And so people who have a more stress enhancing mindset are less depressed. They're more satisfied with their life in general. They usually have more energy and fewer health problems. They're happier and more productive at work and at home. They view stressful situations as challenges that need to be addressed, which means they kind of have efficacy and feel like they have some agency and feel like that they can do something, they can work to solve that challenge. They have greater confidence in their ability to cope and are better able to find meaning in more difficult circumstances. So when you have that stress enhancing mindset, you tend to think more positively, and having those positive thoughts actually impacts your physical health and your mental health. So all well and good, great, stress enhancing mindset. I'm more of a pessimist. Can I change that? Yes, you can. You absolutely can. You can do that by learning a new point of view and trying to think about things from different perspectives, by doing exercising, and not just physical exercise, could also be mental exercises that encourages you to adopt and apply that new mindset, to kind of work to build that muscle that looks at things more positively and from a more enhancing way. And kind of by providing an opportunity to share with others that mindset. So, once you've kind of adopted it and are learning to strengthen that muscle, that enhancing muscle, then you can kind of share that outlook with other people, and that reinforces it in yourself. So there are ways to change that mindset from a stress is harmful to stress is enhancing. So when we think about the body stress response, because I've said that, like, when you have this stress, it does manifest itself physically. So when that stress response really helps you rise to meet new challenges. So it helps you focus your attention, heightens senses, increases motivation, mobilizes your energy, you feel more excited, you're encouraged to kind of connect with others. You're less fearful because you feel that agency, more courageous. It increases the desire to protect, to support or defend your values or organizations that you care about. It restores balance to your nervous system. It helps you to process and integrate the experience more, and really just helps you to learn and grow. And I mean, what I can encourage you to do is think about something that you didn't think you could do. Could be, some goal that you were working to accomplish, and there was a time when you thought, I can't do it. I can't. I don't have what it takes. And then you did it. How great did that feel? How accomplished did you feel? How proud of yourself were you? Because you overcame that stress and did something that you didn't think you could do. Those are the things that we kind of need to hold on to. So think about, how have you risen to meet new challenges during this time? And feel free to put answers to some of these questions in the chat. I'm going to pause after each one, being mindful of the time that we have left, of course. But how have you risen to meet new challenges, especially during these really stressful times? This past 10 months that we've been in this COVID crisis have been stressful. And there have been many challenges that have come up that that I'm sure you've met many, many challenges these past 10 months that you never thought you would have to manage.
Angela, we have new virtual learning and Zoom meetings.
We
I second
Zoom
that.
Experts right now, right? And we are learning to do things virtually, even care for and educate children virtually. How have you connected with coworkers during this time? Are we reaching out to coworkers when we're feeling stressed, and reaching out to both elicit and provide support?
Someone says we're more flexible and fluid. I agree with that too.
We absolutely are.
Dealing with adversity and having more empathy.
I love that. I love that.
Oh, someone said they started a new mom support group. Yes, thinking of new things.
Fabulous.
Yes.
Because moms need support too, right? I love that. So we're being more creative. Yes, giving ourselves grace. I am looking at the chat too with you, Allison. Giving ourselves grace, that's so important, to just allow yourself the grace that you want someone else to allow you. We are always so hard on ourselves. And so what have you learned and how have you grown this year? More encouraging. These are great. And we really do need to do that. Self-care is so important during these times. Yes, and allowing others to shine. So the point is, a meaningful life is also a stressful life. There are things that cause you stress in your life, whether it's your job, your kids, your partner. There are lots of things that result in stress, but would your life be the same if those sources of stress were no longer in your life? I know mine would not be. So stress is kind of a part of it. So what we're going to ask you to do, and we're going to do this somewhat quickly because I'd like to allow, even if it's just 90 seconds of questions. So in this finding meaning exercise, and we encourage you to do this when you have more time, you're going to get this in a handout and we'll actually make it a full page if that helps. Think about the top 3 values that you hold and write them down. What I'm going to ask you to do now is just pick one value that's meaningful to you. And think about, why is this value meaningful? And in what ways am I living out that value? How have I lived that value out? So this is the thing that's so meaningful to me. Why is it meaningful? And how have I lived that value out? Oops. And think about, especially during this pandemic, how are we living out that value that's so important to us, that has so much meaning, that gives meaning to what we do, to who we are? How are we living out that value? And how can we live that value out right now in the work that we do? I'll give you guys a minute to think about that. But this is a great exercise to go through and really think about kind of what gives your life meaning, what values do you hold that are most important, and how do you live out those values? A couple of ways that you can think about to help you reflect on your values during stressful times. You can use personal photos of people who are important to you, people in, for people who are important to you. You can journal. So journaling is a great way to just put your thoughts down on paper and to get in the habit of being reflective. Can be reflecting in the morning about what you hoped to accomplish that day, or reflecting in the evenings about the type of day that you had and what that means for you. You can wear some jewelry or bracelet or necklace or something that reminds you of that value. You can use Post-it notes. I love Post-it notes. I like the colorful notes. They're all around my computer screen and helps me remember. I'll even make mnemonics of sentences, of like thoughts or affirmations that are important to me, and try and make a mnemonic out of it and just, put that down. It may be, the word blue, but each letter stands for a different word. And so I can look at that and see the word blue, and I know that that's a reminder of my affirmation. There are lots of things that we can do to help reflect on our values kind of in the moment really quickly, or to really sit down and give it some thought a couple of times, once or twice a day. And so I'm gonna close with, almost close with this one last slide. So stress is not the enemy. Believing stress is the enemy. So believing that stress is harmful is what's actually harmful. So it's what you think about and how you respond that make the experience stressful, not the experience itself. It's your reaction to it and your response to it. When we view stress as helpful, it helps us to be courageous. So you can say, this is my body helping me rise to the challenge. When you choose to connect with others, that's how you build resilience. Remember Allison said, no one's resilient alone. When we think kids are resilient, there's always been somebody who helped them become resilient. Same for adults. There's always someone that you can connect to, some touchstone, some person who can help you through a stressful situation. It's important to find the meaning of stress within us. Why is this happening? What can I learn from it? What is the lesson I'm supposed to be learning? What can I do to change what's happening? Or how can I come to accept what's happening? For this pandemic, it's really hard to find meaning in the pandemic itself, but we can create a meaningful moment. I know I am waiting for the day that I can freely and openly hug my parents again. And I miss that. I miss the little simple things. And that's one thing this pandemic has taught me, is to not take for granted those little simple things that we used to do, whether it's going to a movie or a festival, because this is Louisiana after all, time with friends that doesn't involve a screen. So we can find those meaningful moments. And finding meaning is not a bypass to pain. The only way out is through, oftentimes. So you have to work through it in order for it to heal. And the thing on the slide I think that's most impactful for me is this quote by Brene Brown. Joy is not a constant. It comes to us in moments, often ordinary moments, and sometimes we miss out on the bursts of joy because we're too busy chasing down the extraordinary. And I think it's really important to remember that in order to really appreciate the joys, there has to be a contrast to that. If we were just happy all the time, we wouldn't even know we were happy because we wouldn't know the difference. We wouldn't be able to feel that elation if we had never felt the sadness. So it's really, it's hard to really think about, oh, I should be happy all the time, because we're not going to be happy all the time. And if we are, then we won't realize when we actually are. We're always chasing that extraordinary, but there is happiness to be had in those little moments every day. And so our last slide is a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that says, you gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You're able to say to yourself, I lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. You must do the thing you cannot do. And I think that is so telling in this time that we're in this year. We have all had to muster strength and courage and confidence over these past 10 months. We have had to face our fears. And we will be able to say that we have lived through this horror and gotten through on the other side. So that leaves us a whole 60 seconds for questions or thoughts. Thank you all for your time, and I'm gonna just open it up. And thank you for the compliment.
All right, as everyone is taking time to maybe come up with questions or comments or thoughts, I just wanted to really quick take a moment before everyone may also start to log out to say thank you to Dr. Keys and Dr. Trigg for sharing this information, not only about their programs and services, but this mental health session with us already this morning, or this afternoon. And if no one else has any comments, I know Mike Bach is on, and he has a quick announcement before we close out today.
Good afternoon, y'all. Can you hear me, Amy?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm sure that I, like many of y'all, have just been excited to participate in this and really appreciate just like hearing all of the reflections in the chat. Today has obviously just been in lieu of today's webinar. I found like super useful, and I know that sometimes we use this time to communicate just some more logistical things around lead agency events and things that are upcoming. And I just want to make sure you know that we're planning on sending that we do know that there are some deadlines coming up, and that we'll be sending emails as we have more information in your FTPs for the February 1st child count and observations and stuff. So that, but also to let you know that if you have questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to email or call. I do just like not want anyone to get the impression that we're not available or able to answer that, but I do think this was a really important use of our time today. So just wanted to plug that really quickly to make sure that we're available for the rest of the week, and to expect some emails from us soon.
All right, thanks so much. I'm going to pause now and see if there's any back to any questions from our Tulane Mental Health or for our Tulane Mental Health team, and give you an opportunity. And we also encourage you to reach out to them if you know of any of your sites that would benefit from these services, or any individuals, maybe it be yourself or your staff, that would also benefit. They're here to support you and share these services with you. And if we'll give a few minutes for that, but I'll close it out soon. Otherwise, have a great and wonderful afternoon.